Hello, everybody. Welcome to Aquarius Rising Africa. Team Arrow, we are. And I'm so grateful to have on mental wealth because this really is the program of mental wealth with Alice. And I'm so grateful to have you back, Alice, as well today. And your brother, Brian Peter. Brian, welcome to our show. And I want to just say thank you so much for joining us today. I know this is your first time you're really speaking up. And I know these times can be kind of nerve-wracking. So I just want to put it out there that you really are an amazing being. I know Alice has spoken about you on the show before. So I'm really, really happy to have you here. So welcome, you two honeys. How is everyone there?
Yeah, doing good. So I'm very excited to have my brother here today, and I just love him to pieces. We are just two of us, no other siblings, and we've come a long way, baby, from where we come. So I don't know if you want me to start out or you want me to start out with a little backdrop, or what do you feel, Chantelle?
Well, I'm going to say maybe, Brian, if you feel comfortable enough, you can just tell us a little bit about your background. If you just from your position in the family, I know that you are Alice's younger brother, and you guys grew up with a homosexual pedophile father, which I know was never fun, to say the very least, right? So what was your experience with that, Brian? Maybe you can start there for us.
It was a double life, basically. You know, I had the whole behind the scenes thing with my father, and then I had the everyday life growing up as a child also, and keeping those two as separate and completely separated, you know, was very disjointed way to grow up, you know, and oh, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say, you know, I know when we were having our off-air chat, one thing that stuck with me in our conversation was when you said, you don't ever remember not being abused by him. So it's like, this is something that you can remember from when you were as young as whatever that might be. So, I mean, you know, I would imagine that you would have had to live a double life, right, as a little kid. And that must have been so confusing for you, I would imagine, because there you were in the situation with your father, and I've no doubt sworn to secrecy, right? And with whatever was going on there, and at the same time trying to be a normal little kid, you know, who's going out and having fun with your friends, or trying to anyway, right? So that I can imagine must have been quite a conflicting time for you. Absolutely. Yeah. How was that? Can you sort of, how was that for you, going home or being at home and then being at school? Did you find life at school, were you able to cover it up quite well? Were you able to live quite a normal life at school? Were you accepted by your peers? Did you excel? Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
No, I was very isolated in the school environment. I was not outgoing at all. Very reserved. Because I was carrying this darkness inside me, and you know, what if somebody finds out? You know, so there was always a hesitancy to reach out and make friends, and you know, I had Usually I hooked up with the oddballs, the outcasts, you know, in such in school. And
Me too.
oh yeah, yeah. That was my place. And I wasn't a jock. I wasn't a brain. Although I had a good brain. When I later learned to apply myself, I did quite well. And anything I applied myself to. But the early years, I was very reclusive and very to myself. And, you know, it's seen as it started right from my earliest memories. The separation was always there. So it wasn't like a learned behavior. It was always ingrained into me that this, you keep quiet, this is another world, you know. They're just separate ways.
Can I ask you just about that? Because that to me is something I'm quite fascinated by. And obviously we know that any pedophile is very good at seducing their victims, whether it's a boy or a girl, right? They're very good at seducing their victims. They're very good at making them feel good, right? Because they know exactly what buttons to push, so to speak, within the child to make the experience pleasurable. I mean, it's horrible to say that, but I do know that that's what happens, right? So what, in your specific case, you were saying that you knew it was something you had to hide, right? If it was something that you were experiencing right from the get-go, how did you know you had to hide it? Did he tell you that you had to hide it? Or was it just something you innately felt?
I you know, the wrongness of it was always, it didn't feel right, but
right.
It at the same time, it was a part of our relationship that I felt approval from that,
right.
And I felt pleasure, of course, pleasure and approval from him. Whereas the rest of our relationship on a daily basis was very be seen and not heard. You know, it wasn't
right.
like, oh, you want to go out and play ball? No, there was no playing ball with him. You know, he was into his music, and even though I love the music, and I still do, I couldn't break into his world. His world was kept away from me. You know, it was like, if you're in the same room, just sit and shut up. I don't want to hear a word from you. You know, if he's given a lesson or anything like that. So he wouldn't. I could count the times that he spent trying to teach me piano or anything like that. I could count them on one hand. You know,
was he a music teacher for other kids? I mean, I know from also our previous conversations, it wasn't just you guys he abused, but there was a whole lot of other kids as well. So was he, did parents send their kids to him for music lessons in the afternoons and stuff like that? And was that where all of these shenanigans were going on as well?
No, he was well above that. He was a teacher at Juilliard and at various other schools of that.
Manhattan School of Music, Juilliard.
Manhattan School of Music.
All over New York City.
Very prestigious. And he bounced around because he got found out, basically, for getting involved with the students and such, and it was hush hushed, and then he would move on to something else. And the same thing with the churches that he worked in. He's working in churches, and he's molesting the children in the churches, and so he bounced around from church to church as well.
He was the choir director in every denomination under the sun, including Jewish temples, and he would molest the young boys in the choir.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was we would go to Sunday school, and we would learn about God and everything, and then this part of him was totally conflicted. The distortion was very complete, and it made it very disorienting as a child to get a firm grip on God and any type of spiritual foundation.
He was into Satanism, Brian.
Yeah. I mean, the Ouija board, all kinds of things of that nature.
I didn't know that. I didn't know he was a Satanist.
Yeah, he was a Satanist. Necromancy, seances, Ouija board, everything. He was definitely into the satanic side of things. And he would always send us to Sunday school and then tear apart Jesus and God and the whole situation. It was, like Brian said, it was very conflicting.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, Alice, I know you also experienced that. So I know a big part of what you were talking about in the past as well is that you saw this go down. I mean, maybe you can tell us from your side how it was for you to observe what was going on in your house. I mean, I know you were a couple of years older, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lot of the things that she saw. Yeah, a lot of the things that she saw and experienced, I was too young to really get a grasp of. She saw things in my father that a side of him that I really didn't experience, like the Satanism and that kind of stuff. I experienced the Ouija board, and I found that very disturbing as a child to get my hands on it, and it was like, who are we talking to? What is making this thing move? And
were you involved in the Ouija board, or did you just see him do it?
Oh yeah, no.
Guys...
I tried it numerous times, and I didn't really understand. I just thought it was something neat, but I didn't understand the implications of it.
We thought it was like family game night.
Yeah. He would include that as part of family. We'd play Monopoly, or let's get out the Ouija board, and let's contact the dead. So it was a strange upbringing, to say the least.
I had no idea about that. So who is he contacting? I mean, I'm interested to know. Who are you talking? I mean, like, that's just weird to me. I mean, I know people do the Ouija board, and I heard about that my whole life. I mean, I can honestly say that's never something I've engaged in.
It's opening the door to the dead.
For sure.
Inviting
dead relatives, his mother, his father.
Any spirit that's willing to come through. And you don't know who's going to come through or what's going to come through. When you start opening that door, it's like leaving your front door open in a bad neighborhood. You don't know who's going to come in. And you know, I learned more about it later, and I understood what it was that was going on back then, and it's serious business. People have really messed up their spiritual life, getting involved with the Ouija board. They think it's fun and exciting, and oh, let's talk to spirits, you know, and you can really, really invite you can invite a demon into your life and into your home, and
we had them. We had them in our home.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure we had numerous. I didn't know any names, but
wow. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, I had no idea actually that he was a full-on Satanist. Now, you may well have mentioned it, I must say, in some of our previous shows.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting that is what he actually brought into the home with the kids as well, right?
Yes.
That you guys were actually involved in playing with a Ouija board. I mean, that's...
And our mother.
Alice, explain to me from your side what you experienced with this Ouija board nonsense as a kid.
Well, it wasn't just the Ouija board. It was seances, necromancy. He just dabbled in it and would invite specifically my mom, but then he would include Brian and I on the sidelines to it. So my mom was really entrenched in that. But at the time, she was a full-on alcoholic. And so I'm just saying that he was extremely abusive physically. In addition to what he did sexually in the molestation, he was extremely abusive physically. And that goes towards my mother also. She was an abused woman. She got her first black eye on their honeymoon. And she was his music student. She was an opera singer, and he was her teacher. And so she idolized him. And then once the honeymoon came, she got her first black eye. She was a beard for him. A beard is you know, somebody that takes over the place of hiding what's behind the real thing, which was that he was a pedophile and he was gay. So my mother hid that. And to this day, she says she never knew, which I find extremely hard to believe. I love my mother. I'm not saying she's right or wrong. In my heart, I feel that she always knew. That's my belief personally.
Do you not think perhaps, I mean, if I just look at the way that these things, you know, I mean, I've learned so much about that side of things in the last few years, I have to say. But do you not think she could have been enchanted, as you guys say, enchanted? Enchanted, right?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is, you know, when you idolize somebody and you just put them on a pedestal, you overlook so many bad things.
Right.
Like the black eye she got. She let us know that it was because she spoke out against the union, the musicians union, and you know, wham, he takes him, backhands her, you know, don't you ever speak bad of the musicians union, you know, and so it's something so stupid to bring out such a violent response, but.
Wow. Well, he was terrifying. He would strip her naked and tie her to the bed, splayed out, and just beat her. She would put makeup over the bruises. The worst thing I ever saw him do, which was just from the pit of hell, was when she was drunk, he was trying to sober her up, and he boiled a pot of water in the kettle. And he threw her hair back and, you know, just pulled her hair back and poured boiling water down her throat. And
No, 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 no.
yeah,
How did
yeah.
I can't? I just
The
can't.
police ended up coming that night, and my mother, our mother, had a beautiful operatic voice, and it was so damaged by all the abuse. And she even ended up, she accidentally swallowed a chicken bone at one point and fractured her throat or ruptured her throat. So many things happened to this poor woman. And she eventually started going to Alcoholics Anonymous, which that transpired and moved her into a place where she became, I am woman, hear me roar. I'm gonna beat him no matter what. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna, get over on him. And, she just changed totally once she stopped drinking. And she became very, what is the word? Passive aggressive. So she would buy a car, not tell him, hide it in the garage, think he wasn't going to find out. Then he'd come home and beat the crap out of her. You know what I mean? She'd buy a color TV set, not tell him. He'd come home and beat the crap out of her. So she was doing all this stuff behind his back. And then, Brian and I were just part of the mix. My brother was a very angry young boy. And you asked me what I noticed. A lot of time spent behind closed doors with my brother and my father, whether it was in the bathtub or it was in the bedroom. I just knew since I was like 4 or 5 years old. My brother's abuse started at about the age of 3 months. But I always had this dirty feeling about what they were doing because I knew what my father was doing to me. And so I knew my brother would scream out with nightmares, terror nightmares. And he was in the room across from me. And he just seemed literally demonized. Just a very horrible, neglected child. But the abuse was continual, and he would spank us and do all this stuff and just have no regard whatsoever for corporal punishment. He would just lambaste us, That's just how we grew up. That's just what we knew. And so my brother and I would fight constantly. We had no one else to take it out on except each other. So we would take it out on each other and fight constantly.
Yeah, we were always at each other.
I was actually going to ask that because I'm sure, when your parents are doing that, and just to go back to what I was saying about your mom earlier on, I'm pretty convinced that he would have done some kind of enchanting on her or something that, as you say, when you put someone on such a high pedestal, he was obviously such a successful human being.
Yeah.
In the music industry and highly regarded and all of that. So, she would have made him. And I mean, from what you're saying, they probably would have met because she had a beautiful voice. So they probably would have met in some kind of a music setup, right? Where that's how their meeting would have come about. Is that right?
She was his opera student. She was his student. And she's beautiful. Our mother used to be a model. She was a hair model. And she's stunning. She still is at 95 years old. That's a picture of her.
Wow, there she is.
When she was modeling.
Yeah, you can see it there. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that
yeah. So she was used to him being hit on by all the women. Oh my Lord, they would hit on him constantly. And my father started me at piano lessons when I was 3 years old. Now, he never put Brian in that music mix. I was the one that was supposed to be the concert pianist.
But he didn't teach you.
Huh?
He put you into music lessons, but he didn't teach you.
Even though he didn't teach me. No.
You know,
no.
And that happens a lot. You know, I don't want to cut him out as particularly odd for doing that, because a lot of parents can't teach their children.
Mm-hmm. He sent me to the best school. He sent me to a very expensive, very upper class. I took a year
of piano, but
yeah,
I did not. It wasn't what I was cut out for. So
yeah, it doesn't mean you weren't cut out for it. I don't know why they send me and not you, but I learned to hate music because of my father.
Yeah, and now I love music. I've got a recording studio in my house, or I will have a recording studio in my house very shortly. And I've tried it numerous times, and because of failed relationships and such, it never took flight. But I think I'm finally going to get it done. So,
well, right now my brother is not sane, and I know it will come up. He's battling multiple myeloma cancer, and he's also battling esophageal cancer. And he's been through several rounds of chemo and radiation, and he's just about lost all his hair. So he is in a fight for his life. And we have talked about that and gone through that. I mean, just, you want to speak to that, Brian, or?
Yeah, it's just it's just another in a long line of things. My relationships, failed relationships, failed marriages, 3 of them, and then I finally say enough is enough, and then I turn around and I wind up going down this road. So God's not done with me yet, though. So I don't know what his purpose is in this, but we shall see.
I just think it's amazing, and I know that I know from our last conversation with Alice as well. You are suffering from the cancer, and you've been through the chemo and the radiation and stuff recently, and I'm just so happy that you're speaking, because I always maintain, the body definitely keeps the score, but at the same time, your body's designed to heal itself. There's no doubt in my mind about that. As being a healer for many years, I've healed myself from breast cancer as well. At the same time, I was bitten by a black widow spider. By rights, I should be dead.
Yeah, you're talking about that. That's
So it's actually quite amazing, and I think when I look at you as well, I think it's such an amazing thing to start talking, because as you talk, you release throat. The throat is all about where you express. It's your voice, and to me, that's so much pain and suffering and torment that you've held inside, and now with the expression in a positive way, that is released. And then the body, the energy starts flowing, and the body starts healing itself, and that's when God's good grace flows through the body, and it's only God's grace that's going to heal the body, nothing else. Everything else, in my opinion, is a temporary measure, if that makes sense, right? So just speaking and allowing yourself to express the things that you probably weren't able to express before is going to be the very thing that heals you. I'm interested, Brian, you said you were married 3 times. Can you speak to us on that? Do you have kids? May I just ask you that?
I have a daughter out in Oklahoma, and 2 grandbabies with her. And so that's a hard situation. That was from my first wife. She packed up and left me here in Florida and went back to Oklahoma when my daughter was 4. And she had threatened to leave before and came back. And she just, she never made the transition from mommy and daddy in Oklahoma to Florida. And things got very ugly down here. And she mixed herself up with some very bad friends. And it just tore our relationship apart. I was running with a band at that time too, for about 7 years.
And drinking very heavily.
Well, yeah. I drank heavier after that. But I was still drinking at that time too. Yeah. But
numbing away everything, right? Isn't that what alcohol does? I mean, it's so interesting, just talking about that. They talk about marijuana or whatever being the gateway drug. No, I think alcohol and cigarettes, the two drugs that are freely available on this planet in just about every country, unless you're going to very strict Muslim countries. It's freely available. So, it's obvious your mom used that as a coping mechanism, which in my opinion is how he probably was able to pull the wool over her eyes and keep her under his grip at the same time. That was her way of coping, right? It's what you guys saw, because, we know from kids don't do what you tell them, they do what you do, right? Kids will observe and they will look at what their parents do, and they're either going to go off in the similar vein or they're going to go and do the exact opposite of that, right? So it depends. But I think it's incredible, that your mom went through what she did and somehow found the strength to divorce him despite what was going on, right? And, obviously I know, Alice, that we've spoken, previously with you as well, in terms of you then having to go and be given to foster families at the age of 12 and stuff like that, because you were obviously not playing ball anymore, right? So, I mean, I just find that incredible. And especially, Brian, with what you were saying with your marriages, I have no doubt that unless people go for professional healing or help of sorts, we will generally, there's so much damage that occurs. And especially in your situation, you've never known a different thing. From 3 months old, he was abusing you, Brian. It's all you know. It's all you knew, right? So to try and break that cycle without having the tools to do it is almost, I would say, impossible. I don't know. What do you say about what I'm saying? Both you guys, I'd be interested to hear what you say about that.
That's one of the primary things that the child abuse and my childhood left me with was a very low self-esteem. And so I now attribute it as my picker is broken. And basically, as far as finding a mate, and, it was like whoever would have me, because I had no self-esteem. And I had a general sense of worthlessness. And
his wives were from hell.
Right.
Yeah,
I can
picked some real winners.
They were horrible.
And I don't know if you'll ever see this, but God bless you all.
No.
May you live long and
Bless
prosper.
you, bless you, bride. Shame.
Yes.
They were horrible.
Wow.
What
No, I
was
can believe
worse
that.
than the next one?
Yeah, I mean, we could do a series of 15 shows on my wives, but you know, I'm not going there. But I started with the drugs and alcohol when I was about 16, 17, and all through high school, then into the service. The drugs laid off, but the alcohol stayed all through the service. I became an accomplished drinker, shall we say? And
Yeah,
I
but
learned.
but let's think about alcohol, right? It numbs that pain. It takes away
I had a lot of pain going on in the service also. You know, it was not an easy lifestyle to say the least.
Right.
So, you know, you had plenty to numb there as well as, and then, you know, coming out of the service, I went right into that first marriage and, oh man. Okay. But
it's absolutely, it's absolutely, you know, and it makes, we see this all the time, don't we? When your self-esteem is low, and when I mean, let's look at this just from a psychological perspective and energetic perspective. When you don't believe you're worthy of anything, because the most important relationship a child is going to have is with a same-sex parent. That's for sure. So when you, as a child, have had this relationship with your father, that he's been molesting and abusing you from 3 months old, you don't know any different. All you see is him terrorizing your mother and traumatizing your mother and violating your mother in the worst possible way as well, right? So he's doing the same thing to your sister. So in that way, it's like just one trauma after the other. So the only way you can appease him is when he now molests you, because that's the only time you as a child see you are satisfying him, or he's happy, or you have that ability to make him feel good in those moments of abuse. The rest of the time, shut up, don't say a word, or you're going to get the crap beaten out of you. You're this little boy that is just there for his enjoyment and amusement whenever he feels like it. You don't have another role model. Your mother's not there to stand up for you because she is completely beaten down by him. You have no backup. You have no, other than your sister, who's probably, from what I'm seeing, the only one that was protective over you, that could be protective over you.
We were busy beating each other up. So,
and then I was going to say, so then the two of you are seeing what's going on, right, in this family, and all that you can do is replicate behavior from the adults. So are we surprised that when we come out of that environment, we choose partners that are absolutely going to emulate that as well? And no doubt, I'm sure your partners might have gone through a similar stuff in their lives, right? They would have probably gone through similar stuff. So, you know, what we say, like attracts alike. In South Africa, say on soort soek soort, like attracts like. So the same, you know, birds of a feather flock together. So absolutely, you know, you're going to mirror each other in these situations. And I've no doubt, that's why I say, no doubt your partners or your wives at the time probably grew up with something similar going on in their lives, which is what they didn't know different as well. So there's just these two wounded people coming together, and all they know is how to beat up on each other and how to break each other down in the worst possible way, right?
And no counseling, no guidance,
no healing,
no God in the relationship.
Which is why these things are so important to talk about, you know, and it's so important to bring it out, because if there's anyone, you know, that's watching or will watch or knows someone in these types of environments, you know, it's so important that these people just get out and get help, and just realize there's no shame in these things. We're all products of our environment, and it's so important to be able to just come out and speak about it.
What were some of the things, Bri, that happened due to the fact that you were so abused and so mixed up and messed up in the head, like during your teenage years? Some behavioral things set in that you shared. And I just think it's important to bring it out, just for people to know that this is a progression that can happen if you are sexually molested, especially by a man to a man. What are some of the things that happened with you, if you don't mind sharing?
Well, in my early teen years, I struggled with the male and female sides of my personality, and what the abuse had put into me was a very strong masturbation and pornography addiction, and exploring the, how I felt about women, and then, all men have a female side, or, a female feminine side to them. And in my early teens, say 12, 13, 14, I explored cross-dressing, and dressing up in women's clothes, not in public ever. It was basically as a tool, just like pornography, for masturbation, that it just heightened the excitement for me, and I wasn't having any relations with women, so it brought a female attribute into the masturbation. If there wasn't pornography available, it was very a twisted time in my head. And but I sorted it out, and I grew through it, and I just grew out of it. But now what you have in society is parents, when the child expresses that feminine side or that masculine side, in the case of a woman or a girl, they're I'm sorry. Come on. Okay. It just lost my chain of thought. Okay.
When a child expresses that side.
Yeah. That instead of letting the child work through it and helping the child work through it, they are encouraging it, and they are saying, "Oh, you feel like a boy," to their daughter. Well, let's go ahead and dress you up as a boy and parade you around as a boy, and you just take on the life of a boy. Mm-hmm. And the same vice versa. The boy feels his feminine side. They encourage it. They dress them up in dresses and parade them out, and it is so sick and twisted now. It just revolts me. I know I went through it myself, you know,
yes.
and I came through it, and I saw that it, you know, I came to terms with the feminine, the male side of myself, but they don't do that with the children nowadays. It's like
encouraging it.
Yeah,
would you say from
we'll
your experience,
cut off your breasts, we'll cut off your genitalia, you know, and we'll ruin your life before you even know what's going on. And it's so terrible. It's so terrible what's going on.
Would you recognize what's going on right now as, okay, we can't, I would imagine that for maybe, you know, not for 100% of people, I do definitely believe there are people that are born with that gender dysphoria. And I've actually seen some of them really transition, like men transition to women over a period of time, and they really just love being a woman, right? So I understand that there is maybe a certain percentage of our population that does have that. But are you, just from the story you're telling us, do you recognize that a lot of what's going on now would be coming from this or similar types of violation when kids were tiny? I mean, I know that's speculation, but I'm just asking you from your experience, because it's very, very interesting what you're saying. I've also worked with people over the years, and I've understood that, you know, especially when, let's say, fathers have been violating their sons for a long time, they would certainly have that time of cross-dressing, because it's like they, in many instances, would not want to be recognized as a boy, because in their tiny little child mind, daddy was not doing that to the girls. So I'd rather be a girl, right? Because that wasn't happening to the girls. So, I mean, I know there's many different ways these things play out, but I'm just asking you from that perspective where you're at, what your take on that would be.
Well, in terms of the gender dysphoria, I have to agree to you to a certain point. I've run into children who truly do exhibit a very strong cross, whichever way it goes. But I think in terms of where it's gotten too far is where they, before the child gets through his teen years and stuff, they start giving him the transition drugs and the surgeries and such like this. I think that should definitely wait till longer if they continue on feeling the same way, and you know, they truly feel like this is a thing, then, you know, once they've reached an age of consent, 18, 20, whatever, then they can make their own decision. But without the parents insisting on it and pushing it, and the teachers and whoever else in their lives pushes it down and says, you have to go this way. You have to go this way. This is the only way you're going to be happy, you know, and not giving them a chance to work through, as I did, those feelings.
How did you work through that without having professional help? I'm just curious to know. I mean, you say you worked through it yourself. That must have been quite a tough one, because I also know, like, there's a lot of men out there who have similar issues, you know, and I don't want to go too deep into it now, because that might be a story for another day. But, you know, when it comes to all sorts of other things as well, involving women's underwear and, you know, kind of like sexual things that they enjoy having done. But that is on another topic for another day.
With me, it was more of a fetish. It was more of a, I had a very strong, you know, I had a pornographic addiction at the time. And this is before a computer, you know, the computer entered the whole scene. But I'd say it was more a strong fascination with, you know, I started feeling the attraction to women and stuff. And I couldn't have that in a physical sense between in a relationship as such. You know, I was too young for that, but I could exercise those feelings through the cross-dressing. I don't know. It's hard to really put a tag on it as far as exactly what was manifesting inside of me.
How did you come out of it?
Yeah, I just came out of it. I don't know. I can't say, oh, well, on this day I said enough is enough. And, you know, it just faded out of me, you know.
Right.
It was like a phase I went through.
Right.
And I can't say that, you know, and that's why I feel like so many of these kids nowadays, they go through the same type of phase. They're not sure of who they are, but, you know, and then the parents step in and they push and they don't allow the child to explore. You know, I think you can explore these things in a healthy way, and then you can push them in a negative way, and you start pushing the drugs on them and pushing the transition because they feel like, you know, they're feeling out their other half, whether it be male or female. And
Well,
from
Jesse's voter, we know that the cabal has an agenda that, you know, they want either a sacrifice of a family member or you turn one of your children into the other gender. That's the cabal's whole thing.
Yeah.
And right now, that spirit, I personally feel, has taken over.
Yeah, that's something else I wanted to
taken over, and it is manifested in, you know, what is
society as a whole.
What is a very small percentage of the population. It has manifested and blown it up into this whole thing that, you know, this is the cool thing to do. You know, in school, it's cool to be gay. It's cool to be a lesbian. It's cool to be, you know, transitioning, and it's just the thing to do. It's almost like it's got a grip on our society. That's
badly.
That's my personal opinion. You know, if my brother was living in this time, I would, and my parents were not so neglectful and they were more into their children, they might have chosen to push him in the way of going into being a girl, you know, and that's the farthest thing from what he is. He's very attracted to women. He is not gay. He is not a girl in any way, shape, or form. And inside, I mean, I know his masculinity. So what I'm trying to say,
my feminine interest was I idolized the beauty of women, and I was very drawn to the beauty of women, and I think that's where my desire to dress up and do that type of activity came from.
But I think also the fact that you didn't have the confidence, right? Because you were so abused from such a young age, you had no idea to understand that, you know, that attractiveness or that attraction you were feeling to a woman was a normal attraction that a boy would feel to a girl. I mean, let's just think of normal kids, right? Okay. So they grow up and they'll go to grade 1 or 2 and they'll have their little crush on their friends at school and have your first kiss when you're 5 or 6 and run away. And, you know, it's never a sexual thing. It's like it's innocent, right? Mm. And you grow up and then when you have 9 or 10, you start looking at boys and, you know, I look at my little granddaughter who's 10. I say, do you have a boyfriend yet? She goes, no, Granny, I'm too young. You know, I go, well, do you like a boy? You know, and then, you know, so you start noticing boys, right? And then when you're 11 or 12, you might have your first boyfriend that you kind of writing little love notes to, whatever the case. It's a natural progression.
Right? I had all that through school as well. And even, you know, I was speaking with my sister last night, and I shared with her my first girlfriend, you know, and my almost first kiss, but that, you know, I went through all that kind of stuff, and at the same time I was being molested by my father, you know.
But that's what I'm saying. There was no healthy,
extremely
conflicted. So there was no healthy boundary, no healthy understanding of what this is. You were being molested by your father, yet you were attracted to girls. So there was such a confusion in terms of that, no confidence within yourself, because that had been destroyed. So, I mean, it's, for me, it's just such a great big package, you know, that gets put together and you're just lumped with that. And you kind of had to figure this out all on your own. And you really didn't have the tools to do it. And you didn't have the parents you could ask. I mean, when, you know, there was no conversation with your dad around this or masturbation or, you know, stuff like that. There was no ability to go to your mum and ask her about stuff like that. So, you know, absolutely.
He was the whole problem with my addiction to masturbation. And that carried me for a long time. It was a problem through all my early years, all the way up into like 30.
Well, it even affected,
especially once the computer came in.
It affected your marriages. It affected your marriages really bad, because having, you know, as a wife, you know, having a husband that has a porn addiction, that's really hard. So it is something, you know.
Yeah.
So,
but then my second wife, she basically she completely shut down at the honeymoon, and there was zero intimacy or sex in the relationship from the honeymoon forward, and I tried everything I could. What was
the reason?
She claimed that it was very painful for her. She was 10. She was 10 years my elder, or eight years my elder. I can't recall.
10 years.
Yeah, I think it was 10. Yeah. And I tended to be attracted to older women because number one, my very early start into sex and everything of that nature, I couldn't relate to women my own age, sexually and emotionally, because I was forced to work through and develop emotionally at a faster rate through my teen years and my 20s and stuff. But anyway, that's another thing. But she said it was very painful. I guess women go through spells of dryness, and it's very painful for intercourse. And there are things you can do medically with doctors and stuff. And so I encouraged her to do that, and she said that she would, and she didn't. And it was beyond that, though.
She was a very militant Christian woman, and she would hold over his head that he wasn't a godly man, that he wasn't the godly man she was seeking, that,
what happened was that transpired because of, with no sex in the relationship, I fell back to my pornography, and I satisfied my needs through the masturbation. And then she found out about that, and then she just lost it, and it was that's where you're not the godly man I thought you were. And the whole thing fell apart from there. And that was the end of the second marriage, basically. But
wow, it's so interesting how these things play themselves out, isn't it? And it's always, when we're looking at these things, isn't it interesting how we look? It's invariably at these types of issues, it always goes back to sex. So either some type of distortion or a fetish, some pornography, whatever it might be. And then that creates the separation. And this, to me, again, is just how these things play themselves out, or how these attacks happen on marriages and stuff like that. Because rather than actually working through it, going to see a therapist or a sex counselor or whatever it is, as a couple, it just created that separation, because neither one of the parties was actually able to step up and say, actually, hang on, let's go and do something. It always comes to this there. And that's why sex, or lack thereof, or affairs, or pornography, or whatever, is always the number one reason people will get divorced. It's number one reason.
Yeah, she completely shut down as far as.
You're welcome. Sorry, I'm just looking at the chat here, and I'm not sure if you guys are looking at the chat.
Yeah,
I'm keeping an eye on it. It's a really, really, we've got some great people in here and some great comments.
Yes, there's been some very interesting comments and stuff. But she had shut down totally emotionally, to the point where she didn't even want to hold my hand. Hugs, nothing. Kissing, nothing. So even beyond the sex, it was just like, well, you could be my pal, and we can be buddies or whatever, So what are you going to do at that point? I didn't marry you to be your buddy,
In retrospect, little brother, what advice, or what would you say to someone? I hope Chantelle has you back, but I hope you come back. But in wrapping up, what would you say to someone who is struggling or has struggled with what you've gone through and come out of? What would you say to them?
Wow. Open up about it. Talk about it. Don't be afraid. Don't let the shame overpower your desire to get help, and to because you can work through this stuff, and it's hard, but you can work through anything. And even with my second marriage, I wanted to work through it, and she just kept, "You're not the godly man I thought you were," and that was all she threw in my face. And I said, "Well, how? What is it?" And I explained to her that the pornography was to satisfy my sexual needs. And she just didn't want to hear anything about it. And I said, if I didn't want to go outside the marriage and start a relationship with someone else. I kept it within. And I know it's an excuse that a lot of men use. But
Brian, nobody blames you, honey. Nobody.
For me, it's far less of a thing to satisfy yourself with pornography. If you're going online and you're having chats and doing, physical interactions or video interactions with physical women, that's one thing. But if you're just watching videos and pictures and stuff, that's a different ballgame. But as opposed to going down to the local bar and hooking up with someone and satisfying yourself that way, that is far more dangerous and damaging to a relationship, I feel, in that respect. But yeah, in terms of, if you've been through these things, if you've struggled with these, any manner of these things, reach out and get help. There's hope to be had. And you can work through these, the confusion and the damage that's been done. And a lot of that I did myself, and I shouldn't have. I mean, I've had counseling different times over the years with different men and different counselors and stuff, whether in the church or out of the church. And I've gotten to where I've gotten, and it hasn't been an easy road. I know counseling, like my sister has undertaken, is very expensive and very time consuming and very demanding. And I've taken the easier road of, trying to figure it out myself, which is hard. Also, but
well, I really appreciate that you've chosen to speak out publicly here. And I always say, and I appreciate you, Muriel. Thank you so much. And just to people that have got such cool things, really, I appreciate your comments, and also for our guests, because this is a safe place, and I do know that the minute we start speaking about these things and start allowing ourselves to set ourselves free, because that's really what it is. At the end of the day, when we become adults, it's so important that we can take those steps. Very often, even when our parents or our abusers are no longer on the earth plane, they've long gone dead, their actions still hold us hostage. And that's what makes us sick. That's what keeps us, whether it's physically sick, mentally sick, emotionally sick, spiritually sick. There's many different types of illnesses, right? But we set ourselves free by speaking and exploring and understanding that the first thing a pedophile is going to do is going to create shame. They want you to feel ashamed, so you don't talk about it. And with the more you don't talk about it, you keep it in you. And it goes around and around and around and around, literally in the cells of your body, which creates illness. Illness then starts forming in the cells of your body. Like
all this manifests itself as illness. It does.
Absolutely.
Whether emotional illness or physical illness. And the other thing I realized when I made my last statement, I said I figured it out myself and I worked through it myself, but it wasn't all myself. It was Jesus. And when I came to the Lord a good while ago, he has transitioned my emotions and my thoughts, and he has through his word and through a growing relationship with him has transformed my entire being,
right,
and healed me of a lot of issues and a lot of unforgiveness with the marriages and with my father and with everything. It's taken me out of cigarettes. It's taken me out of booze. It's taken me out of drugs. This has all been a cleansing and a rebirth.
It's beautiful. It's really beautiful.
He's taking you out of pornography too.
Oh yeah. Well, that was one of the first things he took me out of. Yeah.
It's amazing that you're talking about pornography, you're talking about alcohol, you're talking about cigarettes, all of these things. I mean, those are all your addictions and the things that hold us hostage and keep us imprisoned, really. And even though, anyone who's an addict, you think, oh, I can't wait to get home and have my wine and my cigarette or whatever it is, right? Or sit in front of my computer and see what's new on XXX porn or whatever it is, whatever site it is, and what girl I can chat to. It might be that exhilaration in that moment, but those are the things that hold us hostage. And if, spiritually, we haven't understood that God, Jesus, the Holy Spirit is there for us, and we can release and relieve ourselves of that and go to a much higher place of understanding, and that God has always forgiven us. It's up to us to forgive ourselves and act in accordance with God's forgiveness. I hear so many people talk about, they've received Joanne Breeze, you're such a sweetheart. But we hear so much of God's forgiveness, but yet I have seen in my journey as a healer that so many people haven't been able to receive or accept that forgiveness. So even though in their mind they understand forgiveness is there or redemption is there, but they still act in a way that they are full of shame and sin or whatever it is that holds them back. So it's so important to be able to receive that. And because the biggest thing that keeps us hostage, and anyone who's worked with me will know, I always talk about the tricky trio, right? Shame, humiliation, and guilt. Shame is usually something like humiliation would be something that someone does to you. Like, let's say you were humiliated by your father abusing you. I mean, that's humiliation. And that humiliation creates shame. And when you have that shame, then humiliation and shame, there's the guilt that sets in. And as long as there's guilt, there's a sense of non-deservability, which will always translate into lack of abundance. And when I talk about abundance, it's not money. I'm talking about spiritual abundance. I'm talking about emotional abundance. I'm talking about an abundance of health, of good things that come your way, because that is what God wants for us. God wants us to be happy. God wants us to feel free. God wants us to live a joyful life. And I always say, when we've gotten these, the tricky trio, right? When we've got that nailed, the things that have held you hostage are the things that are going to be the most empowering for you. So the thing that shamed you the most is going to now be the thing that empowers you the most. So through talking about your shame, it sets you free, and it sets everyone else in your vicinity free as well. It gives others permission to talk about theirs as well. And that's the shackles that get cast off, right? That's the shackles that get cast off from our, wrists and ankles and stuff that keep us in this limited space, keep us in the matrix, basically, if you want to talk about matrix. These are the things that keep us in the matrix. And when we release that, we then are able to really move into dimensions. And when I say dimensions, I'm not talking about flying, but
you're not?
it's an emotional state.
If you don't fly to other dimensions.
We move into the heart space then. We love. We are able to trust. We learn to trust God. And when we trust God, we trust ourselves. And then we can start trusting other human beings around us as well. We then trust that we're not going to go into those cyclical relationships like you were speaking about, Brian, earlier on, with 3 wives.
My trust was absolutely destroyed. And the only thing that brought it back was trusting in God. And seeing how trustworthy he is, and that looking back over
trust
my
back
life,
in you.
And I had no trust in anything, and I still suffer from trust issues, but not the way I did. It's
a process, it's a journey, right? We understand it doesn't just happen boom overnight. And as human beings, with so much negativity that is entrenched on us year after year, day after day, moment after moment. I always say, if we look at, our body is made up of around 30 trillion cells, right? And your cells, that when when a child has experienced that type of abuse and it's ongoing, I want to say it changes the shape of your cell. So, and that's obviously that I'm using this to simplify things for ourselves. I'm not saying necessarily that is what biologically happens. So don't get me wrong when I say that. Let's say the cell is usually round and plump and beautiful, right? And happy and bouncing. And there's 30 trillion of them. And when your cells are healthy, you are healthy. But it kind of squishes it and makes it oblong and flat. Now we know how that works. So then the daughter cell creates more of itself, right? So eventually your whole body becomes a mass of screwed up, oblong, odd-shaped weirdness, cellular structure, right? And when we start trusting and believing in ourselves again, it literally changes that shape of the cell again. But that is a process. It's a process that occurs over time. So you've got to learn how to trust others again. And with God, and that's why I say, and this is so important, because with God's guidance, now that you've learned to trust God and yourself, now God says, okay, learn how to trust those around you. Don't see every woman as an evil witch. Don't see every man as a cheater or an annihilator. Don't see every father as an abuser. Don't see every music teacher as a pedophile, right? Because that's not the truth. It might be triggering things in you, and then it's up to you to go and shift that which is in you and that which is triggered. So you've got to notice what your triggers are. And the minute you are triggered, it's not a good thing. That trigger is warning you of something in you that needs to be healed. And that's what we talk in my world. I talk about doing the shadow work, because that's our shadow. You see, because these guys know how to create shade in us, right? When they do that type of thing, they create the most terrible shadow and shade, which is our guilt, our shame, our humiliation, all these things. So as we then start learning that not everyone is bad, not every woman is an evil witch, not every man is an abuser, right? We then, that's when our body heals itself, because now suddenly, ka-ching, the body starts waking up, the cells start becoming fat and plump and dewy and happy again. There's no room for illness. There's no room for illness anymore. That's what I'm saying. So that's how we heal ourselves. And that's how we're able to pass that healing to those around us. And I really wish that for every single person on this planet who has been hurt and been abused and been humiliated that
Absolutely.
everyone, and that's why I always say this channel, this platform is for people to talk, to share their stories. And, you know, as we light our own candle, like let's imagine ourselves as a candle, others can come and light from us. It takes nothing away from us at all whatsoever. So it's a beautiful time where we share, right? We share, we heal. We are able to just be with each other and care for each other. And this is how we do it. This is true healing, not
When
I don't
you
know, whatever.
spoke about triggers, I look at triggers as like you were saying, unhealed things, and those are the pains and the areas that we still need work on, and those are the things that we keep buried and we don't want to look at them. So somebody speaks about it and brings it out, then it's like, oh, you triggered me, you know. And
it's not the person. You must thank the person, because that person's actually doing you a big fat favor.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
what we often do is we then blame the person for hurting or upsetting us, and instead of that, we have to change our perception.
Yeah. We have to take responsibility for our own triggers. We have to take that responsibility. So, but Chantelle, your channel has just done so much for so many. Team ARA. You are
Team ARA. I told you all, don't ever underestimate Team ARA. We're a little ship from Africa, little boats in this tsunami, and we go by without many noticing us. But hey, we, you know, and I'm very grateful for you people that choose to sit here on the channel and speak. You know, I don't have those stories to tell. My story is very different. I've never been abused by anyone. I've never been maltreated by a male in my life, other than, well, the normal relationship type stuff. I can be very honest, you know. But nothing that I can't overcome at all. I've had my triggers for sure. My siblings are usually the ones that irritate me the most.
Really?
And that's just, you know.
What about work? What about work environments? Have you been abused in work?
Please. At the age of 24, I started my own business because I was fired from every job for insubordination.
Yeah, I'm almost the same way. It wasn't insubordination. It was, I don't know what it was, but a lot of closed doors. Yeah. And
for me,
a lot of starting over. You know, you have people that if they go to school and then they come out and they start their career and they build and they walk up the ladder, and that's an older thing. Nowadays, it doesn't exist, I don't think, anymore. Very few and far.
I can't see Chantelle being
a corporate
employee,
a corporate shill.
No,
I can see her being a corporate shill.
The only job I was not fired from was my last job. And to this day, that boss of mine and I are still friends. He's somewhere in his 70s now, but I'll never forget, it was a marketing position. I've always been in marketing and that sort of thing. And when he hired me, he said, stick around. I was in my early 20s. And he said, stick around, kid, I'll make you famous. And I have to tell you, we had such a great relationship. And he was very sad when I left because, you know, then I did leave to go on my own. And then I started my own marketing business and And I used to go to him and I'd ask advice. How do I do this? How do I do that? You know, and he really, really helped me a lot. And to this day, when I go to Johannesburg, and he's maybe in his 70s now, but looks really good, taking very good care of himself, right? And I go and we have coffee, and he can't believe where I'm at. You know, it's like we have that's the only boss who didn't fire me. So I'm very grateful.
You sure belong doing what you're doing now. So that's
I love it, I've got to say. And I really enjoy you guys. And I want to say thank you again to all our viewers out there for being part of our show and being part of the team. next year, I've got some great ideas in mind where I would like to have some of our viewers, on our platforms like this, join in with conversations. I would love to have you guys join in and just ask questions and share your stories and, make it all for everyone to hear your journey, if you're willing as well. So yeah, I've got some ideas, and I hope you guys are gonna. I'm very much a visionary. I get a vision and I talk to God, and God inspires me, and then I go, don't tell me how to do it, I'll do it myself. Don't tell me what to do, God, I'll do it myself.
Yeah.
God, he says, okay, Chantelle, off you go, do it yourself. You got this, girl, right? Meanwhile,
and then he picks up the pieces when you fall down.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you know what? It's so crazy.
He's here to help you celebrate when you do good, and then when you fall on your face, he's here to pick up the pieces.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely, we have definitely, but at the end of the day, we really just are in this together, and we're all just walking each other home. And for me, it's just such a lovely thing that we can all just put out our hands and walk with each other. That's really beautiful. So on that note, I want to just...
May I end in prayer?
But let me just, I want to just ask you if there's anything you want to say before we do that. I want to just look here, crazy, the weird thing.
Thank you, Jen.
I want to say how proud I am of my brother for having the capacity to come on here and talk his talk and walk his walk. And I'm just extremely proud and honored to have you as my brother.
Thank you.
And I know that it's been your first time, and I must say I'm amazed at Brian, because I know some of the stuff, we had a conversation maybe 2 weeks ago, the first time, and it was the first time you actually spoke about certain things, and you spoke about it on the show today. So very freeing, very liberating, and thank you for that. I know it takes a lot to express that. And thank you to our viewers out there who really are amazing. You guys are very, very cool, I have to say. Really, I do. For being so supportive, for being caring, and just loving on our guests. That's what it is. It's not always easy for our guests to share. And I'm not just talking about this show, but other shows as well. You guys are very loving, and I appreciate that. And that's beautiful to know.
Very non-judgmental. Very non-judgmental.
Yeah, we've attracted the people that find us, that have the same hearts. Cool.
And I don't want to come across as judgmental of any particular lifestyle. We each walk our walk, and we come to a realization of truth in our own time, and with God's help. So, just be real with yourself.
I don't think anybody feels you've done that today, Bri. No. You want me to end in prayer, Shanti?
Indeed, honey.
Okay.
Indeed, thank you.
Dear Lord God, we just thank you for this opportunity. I just lift up Chantelle, I lift up Morné, and everyone associated with ARA. I thank you for this platform and the freedom that it brings and allows, Lord God. I thank you for the vision that you gave Chantelle to have guests on that don't necessarily fit into the box of norm, that we can be ourselves and we can talk and we can share and we can set others free by our stories. It says that our testimony is how we overcome the enemy is through the word of our testimony and the blood of the Lamb. And so I thank you for my brother's testimony today. I thank you for all that he shared. I pray that it has touched hearts. I thank you for everyone in the chat. just pray blessings over them, Lord. Just bring us closer together, Lord, to you and to each other as a family. In Jesus' name, amen.
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 Amen. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. And I just want to say, I know for our Jessie fans, she's away right now. Jessie's, I don't know if you guys, she just left a message for her Patreons that she's dealing with some family issues at the moment. So we won't have her on this week. And neither will we have her on, I don't think on Sunday for the book club either. I'm not sure. So I'm just gonna play it by ear. Don't worry, she has not abandoned us, and no, we're not fighting, and no, I haven't kicked her off the show, because I've had people email me asking if I've kicked Jessie off the show. I would never kick Jessie off the show. She's one of my favorite people of all time, I promise you that.
That's why I won't start a podcast.
You can take it on the chin. That's for sure. You got to take it on the chin a lot.
Yeah.
But Brian, I would love to have you back again in the future, because I think you've got some very inspiring stories to tell. So I would love to have you back again on the future as well. And yeah, so to everyone out there, thank you so much. Alice, thank you so much. God bless you all. I will see you guys back with Bryce tomorrow on Solutions, and Caleb on Thursday. And Friday, I'm on Catherine's channel, Kerry Saint on Friday as well, and Arrow Drop on Friday as well. Got some interesting little primate-y things we're going to be talking about. So, and some of the Hollywood elite who enjoys coming to Africa and taking over our primates. Make me
I love how worked up you get.
Watch myself that much, try to be impeccable with my
You're
words.
a very busy woman. Very busy woman.
We love you.
God bless you, Shanti. And God bless
Love
Jessie.
you guys too. Yeah, yes. Absolutely. Thank you so much, guys. God bless you all. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Cherry guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.